now. So the three categories, again, a successful season, an acceptable season, and a failure. For Mississippi State, a success is returning to the postseason. If Jeff Lebby in year one with this schedule can get Mississippi State back to a bowl game, regardless of what bowl game it is, if they win 6 games or more, again, if I told you a second ago, if they win 8, SEC Coach of the Year, throw a parade in town. But if they can get back to the postseason, considering, and I had a State fan tell me that I was wrong about this, considering their schedule, which is, if Florida didn't exist, everybody would point to State's schedule as the most difficult in the SEC. You have 4 road games against what should be all preseason top 20 teams. They all could be preseason top 15 teams, depending on what happens with Tennessee. But you're on the road for the Egg Bowl, and Ole Miss is a preseason top 10 team. Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee are your road games in conference. It's a brutal schedule. Even the Arizona State game, I know they're picked to finish 15th in the Big 12, but 9:30 at night in week 2 on what is a rebuilding and resurging Arizona State team is not easy. So if you can find a way to get 6, if you can win your non-conference games, including in Tempe, and get 2 SEC wins, regardless of what 2 they are, if it's Arkansas and A&M or Arkansas and Florida or whoever, that is a successful season. You should feel really, really good about the hire you made and the direction that the program is headed. Acceptable is 5-7, but competitive. Proof of concept, the stuff that Haydad talks about a good bit. Is there proof of life? Are you getting beat but beat close? If you go to Athens and score a bunch of points, Haydad points to that Ole Miss-Alabama game in 2020. Ole Miss didn't have a roster that could compete with Alabama in 2020, but they did. And they played a really close game, and the offense was moving the ball up and down the field, and they were schemed well, and Alabama just had more horses than they did. And that's why Alabama won that game. Ole Miss was better coached than Alabama that night. Alabama had better players. So do you have games like that for Mississippi State? You don't have to make a bowl game. You don't have to win more than you lose to still have a season that fans should look at favorably as acceptable. Because, quite frankly, the schedule is what it is. The program that Jeff Lebby took over, it's going to take more than just an offseason to get it to where he wants it to be roster-wise. So if there's proof of life, if there's proof of concept, there's a real chance that Mississippi State has the same record, and they're a much better football team because of schedule. And failure is a 5-7 or worse when you're not competitive. There's a difference between competitive 5-7 and non-competitive 5-7. You can very well win all of your non-conference games, beat Arkansas 10-6, and get smoked in every other game and have concern. So that's why it's a little bit different for State, because you can have similar records in totally different fields. If you are non-competitive, if you get blown out in the Egg Bowl, if you get blown out by Tennessee, if Georgia just, does whatever they want to you up and down the field for 4 quarters, if you get beat by Florida and Texas A&M in games that weren't really close, and that becomes a failure for Jeff Lebby in year 1.
It's a repeat of what you saw against Texas A&M last year.
It's last season. Yeah. If you get last season redo, because again, they went 5-7 last year. Mm-hmm. You can have the same record and feel different, but if it's more just not being competitive, I know they don't play LSU, but LSU just beat State like a drum, and after that game, you thought, man, this is not gonna work.
I remember that being just. It was ugly because the players were getting literally run over. Do you remember that? I can't remember which running back that was for LSU, but just literally ran over the Mississippi State defense.
And LSU's offense was great, don't get me wrong, but, guys running completely and totally uncovered for easy pitching catches from the Heisman Trophy winner, who we didn't think was the Heisman Trophy winner at the time. But that was really, really ugly. But Haydad brings up the Ole Miss-Alabama game. What about the Mike Leach game in Athens? They had 46 scholarship players or whatever available that night, and they went there and they played really, really well. Remember what people felt after that game? It was a loss, but remember how people felt. That's what Jeff Lebby needs to provide this season for it to be looked at favorably. So there you go.